fight. We don't have to kill. Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill. No, we don't have to fuss, no, we don't have to fight.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Just Chill with Oliver George. Before we get to this week's episode, as always, I'd like to remind you that if you're watching this on YouTube right now, and for whatever reason you would prefer an audio-only version of the episode, you can access that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. And vice versa, if you're listening to this right now and you did not realize there was a visual side to the show, then please come check us out on YouTube. However you choose to enjoy the episode, please subscribe, follow, share, like, whatever it may be on that respective platform. I'm just trying to grow the channel, and I really appreciate the ability to reach any new listeners and or viewers. So thank you if you already have subscribed. Finally, if you'd like to reach out to the show, it's justchillpodcasting@gmail.com. Now, for this week's episode 31, another Zoom interview, a man I've respected for a long time. I actually met him when I was in middle school, surprisingly. We talk about that in the episode. It's Mr. Alan Neal. He's a mainstay at the CBC. He hosts a show called All in a Day, which you can hear in Ottawa, Kingston, Western Quebec, Monday to Friday. Starts at 3. Just a great guy all around, bit of a geek like me, so we got a little nerdy at the end. Talked about COVID. It was just a great chat. Other than technical difficulties, so look out for that one. About halfway through the interview, I realized that the cord I thought was plugged in on my laptop was not actually pushed all the way in. So yeah, about 25 minutes of scrambling around ensued until I finally got booted up on a different laptop and gave up on the first one, and we continued our conversation. So it's all stitched together nicely now, and I hope you enjoy, but it was a fun chat. Thanks.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, man, so much for taking the time to sit with me in the first place.
Oh, no worries. I'm sorry that took 14 minutes to
Oh, no, that's fine. Audio stuff is always bound to happen. We're coming in clear now, at least. Cool. But I just want to thank you first for coming on. And I got to say, I think it's funny that it's already, not even noon and you're going from being interviewer to interviewee. But I guess that's all in a day for Alan Neal, hey?
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to fun it up a little at the beginning here.
No,
but that's a good way to say, for people who might not know, you are the host of All in a Day on CBC Radio. You guys are in Ottawa, Kingston, and Western Quebec, I believe, right?
Yeah, Eastern Ontario and Western Quebec. So everything
3 p.m. every day.
613 and 819 area codes. Yeah,
nice.
That's us.
Okay, well, actually, I should say first, my daughter, even, because I always picked them up from school, and you're always on the radio at that time. So my daughter was like, "Oh, are you interviewing the guy from All in a Day?" So even my kids were excited about this one.
That means they're the really cool kids in school when they're listening to CBC Radio. That just means they obviously are like the coolest kids around. That's right.
Yeah. Well, no, my kids are awesome. I think they're pretty smart for their age, though. So I think they actually enjoy the talk radio sometimes.
Honestly, and this is we get emails sometimes from kids who are like 11 or 12, and there's this thing sometimes where I'm like, okay, are these the parents who are encouraging them? But the kids, they really connect to what they're hearing sometimes, and they want to share their opinions. And I was that kid. I remember what that was like, where I would hear my parents yelling at CBC on the radio, and I'd be like, yeah, me too. I'm going to yell too. I am also enraged by this interviewer.
And you guys have had a lot of segments where you feature kids too. So
yeah,
the dream is real for them.
Like my favorite segments are the ones where when we did the March Break Club and all that stuff, where kids just talk about what's on their minds. It's been fascinating, eye-opening for me.
It's very cool as a kid to, when you get to feel like you get to play in the grown-ups world a bit. I remember calling, I think it was the mayor or someone who was running for the mayor. My parents, I must have been 8 or something. My parents, you should call in. And when I got through, I thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. Even though 5 minutes ago, I didn't even know who that person was. And, but it was just, I guess, an early form of this, Yeah. People want to listen to me. I was going to say,
now look at you. Yeah.
Well, it's been a pretty cool year, I got to say. We're still playing the game of trying to get subscribers and all that. But I mean, that's never been my main mission with any of this. Just, it's been so cool to talk to all these people that I respected growing up. And, just realizing that sometimes all you got to do is just reach out, and people are still people. And, a lot of people have said to me like, hey, wow, you're getting impressive guests, but I just try. Like, I just, I don't have a lot of shame, and I have no problem emailing people a bunch and, being persistent. Like you, I think I've been trying to get on here for months at this point, pre-pandemic.
Yeah, that really makes it sound like I am like the big get. Yeah, this local radio show host. Yeah, we've landed him for sure.
Well, the pandemic put a wrench in a lot of guests that I had
Oh,
lined up around the spring,
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's nice to
No,
finally get to talk to you.
it's that's I'm so impressed that you've kept going during it because I know for our show it has completely changed the ability to have guests in the studio. We can't
Yeah.
do that, so it's all phone lines, and then it's a million technical issues and
Yeah.
all of that, and trying to have intimate conversations with people about things that matter to them. It's a very different thing when they're in the room versus, I mean, and here at least we're looking at each other, but with the radio show we don't connect that
Just
way, right?
audio,
It's all by
yeah.
phone, so it's a very, you feel very disconnected, I think, sometimes at a time when people were really craving connection. So it's been definitely I think a challenge too.
Yeah, I actually took I don't know what, maybe a month or it might have been 2 months when it all happened because for a lot of the reasons you just listed, I find the connection just really being in the same room with someone and sitting down, looking them in the eye. It's just different than this. And I'm not saying better or worse. I probably would say better personally, but beyond that though, I have 3 kids and there was the whole school situation there. And my fiance is an ICU nurse. I also work part-time sterilizing surgical equipment. So we were both kind of in the front line thick of it. And it was just, there was too much going on. I was worried about my parents like everybody else. And so I said, you know what, especially at that time, the only real guest of note, I would say, was Strombolopoulos at that point. So, I didn't really feel like I was letting a huge lot of listeners down. It was 80 subscribers on YouTube or something. So it just seemed like the smarter thing to do was focus on family. But in the end, I've found that the Zoom thing has been really cool because it's given me the opportunity to chat with people that never would have come to Ottawa anytime soon, So I'm trying to embrace it, but
Yeah.
I like to try to
and you get a little bit of a window as well into what this, although right now you're not getting a window into my house. I just want to clarify. I'm at the Writers Fest offices because we were just doing the interview with Ian Rankin for the Writers Fest series that the festival for Writers Fest is all online this year. So they have this sanitized isolated booth in their office where they have stacked books behind it, and this is how the interviews that I'd normally be doing up on stage for Writers Fest. So Ian Rankin for this was in Scotland, and I'm here. We were conversing this way for it, but and the wonderful engineer Mike is leaving now. Bye, Mike. So for instance, but even getting in here, I'm masked anytime Mike was anywhere nearby, and it's just a different.
It's bizarre
altogether.
Yeah.
Like it's a very strange.
I have not gotten used to any of it. Thankfully, I'm complying to everything that we should be doing. I feel like the first month, I don't know that I was wearing the masks and stuff because I'm stubborn by my nature probably, but also just no one really knew exactly what was going on and it felt so new to everybody. But once it started really setting in, now I can't stand when I see people, with their noses hanging out like this. Ugh.
Yeah.
Every time I want to scream. It's always in the grocery store around food too. But yeah, it's been weird. And we sort of touched on this, but that was something I wanted to start off with was like, what have been the biggest changes for you and how have you found adapting to this with the job that you do and with being a radio personality,
I find it huge because the way we currently work it, they try to keep us out of the studio as much as possible. And out of the offices as well as much as possible. So I work from home until 1, and then I walk to work through the somewhat deserted Ottawa streets, and I get to the studio, and it's just me and my producer and an engineer. So all the associate producers, everybody else who you would normally, reporters, it's just you walk into this sort of cavernous CBC, and you've just it's going to be, I say very optimistically when things return somewhat more to normal,
we'll get there,
as opposed to if. I'm saying when for the time being, but I think just the sheer noise level is going to be deafening because right now we've almost all become so accustomed to this pristine silence, that clickety clack of people typing. Like you're so used to just hearing yourself. It's interesting, even just the muscle memory now that you sit down at your desk and the first thing you're doing is wiping everything down.
Yeah.
And then you get to the studio and you're wiping everything off. Like, even though I know now it's more a concern of the transmission face to face more than
Surface contaminating.
surface stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to stop doing that.
No,
either.
me neither. I'm still
it's,
washing my groceries and stuff like a madman.
It's still, so it's that, but I'm so used to now when I'm in the studio, there being no one around, that when we were setting up they were doing this hip hop series called OT Rising for CBC. And there was one other person who like walked into the studio to set up the camera, and I was almost like, what are you doing in here? Like it seems, and it's so ridiculous, but you just, not because of an actual fear of the virus, but it's almost just I've become less accustomed to interaction face to face.
We're conditioned to this now to some degree.
But I mean, as we said earlier, I find the biggest shift is just that there are conversations that are just better when the person is in the studio, and where there's no chance that the dog is going to start barking in the background, or that the phone is going to become disconnected, or that there's just the general distraction. There's a different way people talk when they are face to face than, like, there's a consciousness that we're having a conversation. Even right now, you and I looking at each other, we are aware that person is, I really need to be focusing on you.
Yeah, we're engaged. Yeah.
There is the slightest chance all the time that somebody who's on the phone, other stuff could be taking them out of that mindset. And because radio is such an intimate medium, like it's creating those images in people's minds. Like when people are listening at home or in the car or wherever it is that they're listening, you really are stepping inside the minds of the two people talking. Yeah. And so if one of them is distracted, it throws.
You hear it right away. Yeah.
So I think I'm very indebted to people's ability to adapt, and I am blown away, in all honesty, by how people have just both the people I work with and the people who we have on the show have just dealt with it. Like, people have just figured it out and moved forward. But it is a very different way of storytelling. Like, I'm also a big fan of sound on the radio. I'm a big fan of going out and hearing what it's like on the LRT, and hearing the sound of if you're in a park, or
the environment,
traffic, or the bus, or whatever it is that wherever you are, that we haven't been able, like, our face-to-face interviews, if we're lucky enough to ever get them, you're with a boom mic at a distance. Like, I went out to interview Sally Thomas, the former not former, Paralympian powerlifter, who, she's in a wheelchair and she was trying to get this bus stop fixed. And I said, this is a natural TV story, so it would be great if we could do it at the same time. But it was the first time when I was actually, so I was like literally nowhere near her. Normally I'd be about like it's handheld, the mic.
Yeah.
I'm crouched down, and I was like, this is not creating necessarily. She was amazing. Like she had no issue with it whatsoever, but it's not creating let me tell you about this thing that really matters to me. It's like, Sally, would you tell me about what you're going through with this bus? Like so especially when it's a story like that really matters to people, people adapt, I adapt, everybody goes with it, but it is different. It is a different way of conversing. And I guess it is just the amazing thing of the human spirit that it still translates. Like, the people still find ways of still talking about themselves and the things that matter to them, that even with the weirdness that we've all been thrust into.
Oh, we're a resilient group of individuals, human beings, So I agree. And it is weird. Like you're saying, it's such a massive distraction, I assume, for her when she's being interviewed and you're just like squatting there, 10 feet away or whatever. But even some of the other people on your show doing the weather, and they're doing it from home, I assume, right?
Yep. Yeah. Until recently, Ian was at home, which I actually kind of loved, because the sound of his backyard, I felt was like this
Yeah, that was
vicarious
nice.
thrill. I was sort of like, oh, you get to be outside.
Yeah.
I'd like to be outside right now. But he is now back in the office. Like they're slowly bringing people back.
Someone was in their daughter's closet the other day when I was listening.
Yeah, that was in our business reporter in Calgary. He had been, I mean, and this is what I'm fascinated to see how this is going to progress. So he had been let back into work. He was back, at the business desk in Calgary. And so they do hits for afternoon shows across the country. He was all cleared. Then case in point, somebody he has to deal with, he has to go into quarantine. So he's back at home putting up like his daughter's frozen blankets in around him for sound baffling. And he's like sitting there in the midst of like Disney princess stuff, talking about the business world. And that, as every school case develops, every daycare case develops, I'm so fascinated to see how this is going to play out in terms of.
Well, speaking of daycares, didn't you just deal with the situation?
Yeah, we
that?
My twins are now still in isolation. Their daycare had a case, and we found out. So I mean, daycare shuts down for 14 days, and then of course you're going through the angst of getting twins tested, as well as their older sister,
especially right now while all the lineups are just growing and growing for testing.
So we tried to do the Brewer Park, and it was 5-hour wait, and the Heron was 3 hours. Both the offshoot, sorry, vocabulary failing me right now, but the tent, the additional tent they had set up had a 3-hour wait. The original lineup had a 3-hour wait. And it's one thing when you're going there like as an adult male grown man.
You can go on
I
your
could
phone
stand there and
yeah.
like that's one thing. When you've got 3 kids all under 6, like
That's
the
brutal.
idea of let's all stand in line for 5 hours, I was just like,
not happening.
How is this going to work? So I mean, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to go down, I'm going to do that thing where I got there at 3 a.m. and I will just stand in line, I'll be the marker, and then I will just call and say, hey, it's time to come down. We ended up instead doing the Canadian Tire Center mass drive-through thing, which again, like, of the things that I ever could have envisioned 2020, like the parade of cars, like that was not leaving a game at the Canadian Tire Center, but that was like just being led in this parade for it was still 3 hours we were there, but at least we were in a car, like able to be broadcasting Nella the Princess Night and to kids,
and you have your own space, kind of.
Exactly. The Aristocats can entertain them at least while they're, as opposed
to crucial.
Them have to stand in line. But I was again, and then like, hey kids, here's what we waited for, the swab. Like, it's just,
you said we were getting ice cream.
It's a different kind of ice cream. It's and again, like, more power to the people who are running it and all of the people who make those things happen. But what a bizarre experience. And then waiting for your test results 4 days, I think it was, for it to come through. And I know that's not because anybody's slacking. That's because this is the insane reality right now. But 4 days of not only waiting for test results, but also a very uncertain thing of like, what are we supposed to be doing? Where are the answers coming from? What are we supposed to be keeping our 6-year-old home while
should you be trying to limit interaction with your own
are we supposed to? And so getting those, and I say this in a very, very privileged position of like, I am technologically, I have internet connection. I have the ability to keep checking online for the results. I have a job that at least I like, and my wife have
adaptable.
jobs that
Yeah.
that can work with this. We have jobs, first of all.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
This is
That's
so
the
all of that
baseline.
is privilege, right? Like for all the families who also have 3 kids and all, like it's much more dire situations. I cannot imagine. And so then on Thursday, I think it was, when the test results went down online, like the website just
Oh, it just
reported,
crashed.
we are unable to access results. I thought, oh my gosh, like we were waiting. We had the twins at that point, but we were waiting for everybody else. And I thought this, like the collective meltdown of a province at that point to that news, I thought this is so weird to be in
Yeah.
this situation. And you don't want to be the person who's griping and complaining, but I know how tough it is for a lot of people out there, and it's scary.
It's surreal too. It's discombobulating when you wake up and you have to remember that this is the world we're in now. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a different experience in some ways because we're both hospital workers, my fiance and I. So we get the trade off of being like, she gets to skip the line when she went to get tested the one time, but she's also on the front line, so
exposed to it.
Yeah, it's kind of a trade off there because we were terrified at the beginning, especially when no one really knew how contagious this thing was, et cetera. And with 3 kids, not only that, but my oldest 2, we have joint custody with my ex-wife, and she was pregnant at the time, so it was just so many variables to worry about.
Wow.
But everything's honestly been pretty good since then, since things died down. I mean, I know we're headed towards the second wave. It's a little worrisome, but I got to start doing.
What is your role at the hospital then?
Oh, I sterilize surgical equipment.
Okay, so
but I'm just a part-time worker. I'm mainly a stay-at-home dad. I try and pick up shifts whenever she's got days off.
Right.
Essentially.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I do the show.
But I mean, still, that's you guys are not exactly removed from.
No, not by any means. I mean, she's at the Queensway, so it's not the biggest hospital compared to like the Civic campus or something like that where I work. So that's good because she's really on the front lines as an ICU nurse. At the very beginning, there was lots of patients where she'd be coming home and we'd be like, put your clothes in the washing machine and get in the shower like right away, stay away from everyone, and I should preface by saying that I have OCD and I was somewhat of a pretty big germaphobe before this. So in one way, I've always it's like I've been preparing for this my whole life. But at the other side of it is, it definitely amped up anxiety and stuff for me, even more than maybe for the next average person that isn't oriented to be that way. But what can you do?
That must be intense for you, though. That's.
Well, I mean, OCD and anxiety is sometimes intense just on a normal day, like even before the pandemic, trying to pick a cereal at the grocery store and I have some meltdown over that, only to realize in the car later how ridiculous it was or whatever. But I mean, all we can do is try to keep going, right? And stay positive. And it's been good doing the show again because I've been able to have cool chats like this, which is always uplifting for me. And we did a few in studio. I do have a big plexiglass thing now, so we're trying. My dad wears an N95 because he's just turned 65 and he's kind of the audio technical wizard here.
Right.
So we've only done a few of those, but I'm trying to pepper them in for all the reasons we talked about, that it's just so much more fun. I mean, this is a blast. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to.
Fine, I'm done.
Yeah. Hangs up. I wanted to let's go back a little bit because I don't know much about your roots. You weren't the easiest guest to research. I mean, there wasn't ample like Wikipedia on you or anything like that. So I wanted to know like how you got.
I had a Wikipedia entry at one point, and then it got taken down. Like I think that's got to be a new low in one's popularity at the point where like we don't think he's worth this. Let's just take this down. I never contributed to it, but it was the weirdest thing to watch it evolve because I would like every so often someone would say, "Oh yeah, I looked at your Wikipedia entry," and I was like, "Oh," so I'd open it, and these weird, like often completely erroneous things would be in there, and I'd be like, let's just see how that myth lives on. We'll just let that go.
I was a stunt man back in '94. Actually, no,
sure, yes, I did. I absolutely
had to learn that the hard way with a couple of interviews I did when Spenny came on. I said, so you studied at Second City Comedy in Toronto? And he said, no, I don't know why everyone thinks that, but sure enough, it was on the Wikipedia page. So I've tried to lean into other directions when it comes to research.
Always a smart idea.
Well, Wikipedia can be a good sort of Cole's notes or whatever, but you definitely have to double check some of that stuff. Anyways, all this to say, I wanted to know how you got your start in broadcasting, and I wanted to sort of bring up that I met you when I was like 12 or 13.
You did.
I was part of the Gloucester Youth Theater Productions was the name
That's
of it.
right.
And it was like a drama club for kids, I guess. And we put on a play at the end of the year sort of thing. I met a lot of cool people there, though. And you came by as sort of a mentor of sorts for during the production. So it's cool to reconnect after all these years.
What was your role? What was your part?
I think I was the best friend of the main guy. The main guy was Roman. I think I was playing Ben, and it was his best buddy, sort of one of the main supporting characters.
Because it was an update on Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
And Sarah Kaloran had written it, and her mom, Chris Kaloran, was running the theater company, and she was the one who had asked me to come talk to the kids. And it was actually a super fun thing every week. But yes, so you probably would have been like the Benvolio update version of the Romeo. Probably there's some Shakespeare person now tuned in saying, you got that totally wrong. But anyway,
I can't confirm or deny that either.
I'm going to go with that. But yeah, that was, so it was hilarious. Like I wish I still had video or a script or something. You could have done a reenactment of your role. You could have like pulled out.
Yeah, I don't even have any pictures from that whole time, I don't think.
What I remember most, there was a, and I unfortunately don't remember a lot of the kids' names. It was so much fun to do that. But I think his name was Matt. I'm not sure, but
Matt Morrow, a really tall guy.
He wasn't tall at the time, but
Matt Joyce, probably Matt Joyce. Then, yeah.
My gosh, you're still okay. You're still like
I know these guys. They're all Beacon Hill boys. Yeah.
I remember the scene. I think it was the three of you where my big note to you was I was like, okay, so just remember, you're always coming from somewhere when you're entering a scene. Like you didn't just you're not on character when you first walk on the scene. You're coming from somewhere. So Matt, where were you coming from? And he was like, stage left.
Not so literal.
But where were you in character before the scene? Where would you go? And he was like, stage left. He was so serious. I was like, okay. But yeah, I mean, I actually genuinely remember just thinking that was such a window into how kids what the amount they were willing to like what's the word I'm looking for, get it, like just give themselves thinking, okay, yeah, I'm gonna take on this drama project versus the too cool for school period. It's like that exact age where kids would either, oh, my parents are making me come to this, or yeah, I really want to do this. That's fascinating moment of how you win them over.
Yeah, I would say it was I was, I think, grade 7, so I was probably 12 or something like that.
Yeah,
maybe 13. And I think most people were in that range of 12 to 16 probably, or something like that. Yeah, it was 1998 or 9, I guess. Ages ago now. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I feel so old. So how did you get your start, though?
Right. That's your actual question.
I went on a tangent there.
Terrible interviewee here.
I'm setting you off course here.
So how did I get my start? So I did journalism at Carleton, and that was always, and I think I was always interested in telling stories of people, and that's where theater and journalism kind of intersected, because I was writing plays a lot at the time, but I also knew the big money was maybe not in theater, and I was in journalism. That's where the big money is. No, but I thought, what's something that I knew I wanted a job that was going to be fulfilling. I knew I wanted to not be doing something that I didn't enjoy. And so I thought journalism was a way of pursuing that. And while I was at university, though, my time ended up being very evenly split between theater at the Sock and Buskin show, and I started running my own theater company at the time, and journalism as a program. So in fact, I did so much in the theater stuff that I kind of forgot to do an internship, and I got to my 4th year of journalism at Carleton and realized that this was kind of a key thing when you're trying to get a job afterwards, being able to say, I did an internship at.
Oh.
But what I had done, though, weirdly.
Please stand by. Hey, oh man, what a
Hi.
nightmare. So yeah, I basically had my cord in a position where it was in the slot, but not actually pushed in all the way. So I thought I was
Oh no.
fine, and then all of a sudden everything shut down. Now I've got pit stains from running around trying to push this thing. Yeah, my main thing is hoping that I can salvage what we had because I thought it was a good chat so far.
If we do have to redo it, we'll just be honest about what happened, and
Yeah.
then we can take it in a totally different tact or whatever if you want. I mean, if it makes you feel any better, like we did that hip hop series that we did, it was this wonderful Instagram live event, and the exact thing happened. The system crashed after they had 4 different people I was going to during it, and it crashed, and we lost the first half of it
Oh, no.
because in the frantic thing, because it was live, everyone's trying to salvage it. Nobody realized the whole thing about the recording element having been lost. So it happens at the CBC too, where the technology just will defeat
Yeah, I
you.
know it's part of the game, but it's frustrating as all hell. And
I
mean,
know.
to be honest, this may work out in a weird way because what we're doing now is technically recording. So for all I know, when I export this, it may cut immediately from what happened to this, and that could be
Yes.
interesting. I'm kneeling on my floor right now because this one's plugged in over here. So it just sucks for the conversation. I mean, this is recording now. We might as well try to keep going.
For sure. Let's keep going with it, and then if
We've only
if
got
it turns out
20 minutes, so I'll try and power through these questions. So in a nutshell, finish up your journalism.
Yes.
Journalism.
If this still exists. So I think I hope, I don't know where it cut out on it exactly, but
you were talking about an internship, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. So the internship ended up coming about because, in a weird way, because of theater, because I was on, weirdly enough, All in a Day as a playwright. Like they interviewed me about my plays that I was doing, and the producer at the time said, anyway, thought it was interesting or whatever, and said, "Hey, have you done your internship yet?" And I had graduated at this point, and I was like, "No, I didn't end up doing that." And they said, "Well, do you want to work? Do you want to come here for a couple of weeks in the summer and do work for free, basically?" Which is what interning was at that point. And I said, yes, I do want to do that. And so I did. And I mean, it was a very different world. This is when All in a Day was still broadcasting out of the Chateau Laurier. And it was a 2-hour show with like, at that point, I think it was there was the producer, 3 associate producers, a production assistant, a music person, we had for 2 hours of programming, which only had like 1 item every half hour. It was an incredibly different world of resources. So then to have this additional intern there is kind of funny. But at the time, I was kind of, because journalism at that point prepared you very much for being a reporter, and current affairs at that point anyway wasn't so much part of the training. So the idea that I could really just be writing and working for a host to do stuff sounded awesome, like working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Nobody has to hear my voice. I still get to research and talk to all these people every day, and this is kind of fantastic. And yeah, so that's being an associate producer, I thought would be great. And what ended up happening was, and this is actually still the way it works at CBC really, is that I was there and people kept getting sick. And so I just kept filling in. And so it would be these contracts of day. And it just went on for a long time. And so much so that people, I think, thought I had a long-term contract, or I was a casual employee, when in fact I was pure contract for a long time. Like, it was just the luck of being able to be there. And then and I loved it. Like I've always loved the medium of radio, but I never loved my voice, so I didn't think I was really the on-air person, right? So, and then it was just this fluke one time. What was it? It was the film reviewer one week got sick, and we actually had this hole on the show, and they said, "Oh, well, it'd be great if it was something pop cultural." And then that night on the Nashville network, they were re-showing the episode of Dallas called Who Shot JR episode. Yeah. And I said, I could do a commentary on what it was like being 6 years old and like the effect of what that was at the time. Like as a kid, what Dallas and the producers got like, yes, you will, go ahead. And so I did. And then people responded really well to it. And they said, oh, you should do more pop culture stuff. Like that should be your thing. And so I started doing that, felt comfortable enough getting on air and doing that stuff. And then this is a really long answer to your question.
Oh, that's okay.
But
It's your life.
The producer of the morning show, they wanted a consumer columnist, and she said, I like the way you sound on air, would you consider being the consumer columnist? And I said I would be a terrible person to be a consumer columnist because I don't spend my own money wisely. I'm like a 20-something guy at that point, and like single, and
Frivolous.
this is not. I'm not responsible. But I am really interested in why people buy things, and could we do something about it, like a sociological column? And she said that does not sound sexy at all. Could you come up with a better name? And I said, what about trends? And so then that's when I started this trends column, and that really was where I was still associate producing behind the scenes all the time, but my on-air stuff really took off at that point because people, for whatever reason, really clicked with this trends column. And so every week I would pick something that we were seeing more of as a society, and it could be anything, and then get a bunch of people to analyze it and investigate it. And that for me was also like a really eye-opening moment of saying, okay, you can create a space for yourself again, this is pre-podcasting, this is
It's kind
like
of
a lot of this stuff, like people now are sort of like, well, yeah, of course you do, you just create something and people come and find it. But within the system of a CBC, it was eye-opening for me anyway, to figure out how you could carve a space, and that people, like, that's the amazing thing about that station, Ottawa in particular with CBC, was that there were people who then fed it, right? Like they were people who said, okay, where do you want to go with this? Wow, what can we do to assist make this happen? And the producer of the morning show at that point was Jane Anito, who passed away last year, but she was instrumental in making that stuff occur. Like there was a little bit more time at that point to be looking out for the young up and coming people. Like I try and do as much of it as I can now, but it was kind of in the infrastructure. Oh, that's the Writers Fest phone. Let me just answer that. I don't know what I should do in this situation.
It's been a fun technical day.
I'm not going to answer that because I think I would.
That would be weird. Yeah.
Call from 613.
Now I feel bad. Like somebody's phone number is being broadcast on this podcast.
Well, I
I'm
can
going to
cut
talk
this
over
out if we
top
have
of
to, yeah.
it. Yeah. I think that's done. So the trends column happened, and then that got syndicated nationally, and that was like an amazing thing at the time. And then the hosting started again. I didn't think this was something I wanted to do, but this is my last short story for you. But this fluky moment where I happened to be walking by the Ontario Today studio. They were at this point broadcasting from the Royal Winter Fair in Toronto, but here in Ottawa, they had just the engineer, Ryan, who was there at the board, and he looked like he was just having a meltdown. And I just swung in to say hello to him, and he's like, "I can't talk right now. We've lost the system. The Christmas tree fell over in Toronto, and we've lost the connection, and I can't broadcast them. We're coming up in like a minute." And the producer, Elizabeth Hay, was on the line, and she's like, "Is that Alan? Just tell him to go in and fill." And so, like, there was like, go in. And I kind of thought it was a joke. Like, I didn't think like this is something that happens in a Hollywood movie or something. And so I walked in and I put on my headphones and I sat there at the mic and I was like, okay, what's really going to happen? They're like, go, go, go. And so then I started, "Hi, this is Alan Neal. You might be wondering why Dave Stevens isn't talking right now. Well, we're trying to fix the system." And like, I had coming up, there's like on the talk back saying,
Just scrambling.
And I was like, peat moss, is that a person? Are we talking about the object peat moss? I don't know. They're going to be talking about peat moss. And so it was just stretching for what felt like 20 minutes and was probably like
2 or something.
2 minutes or something. But it was then, and you saw all the people and come and start running down the halls, like and of course it's through the glass. So I could just see everybody's like, why is Alan on the radio? Why is Alan on the radio? And so then gradually, people helped out. But the producer said, you know what, if you can do that, I'd be really interested in having you fill in as a host.
When you're actually prepared for it. Yeah.
And like do this for real. And so then that's when I started. And from then on, it's just been like, it was a lot of fill-ins and a lot of that. And Ontario Today was my first actual job after that, weirdly enough. And then did Bandwidth for a bit and Fuse for a bit, but it came full circle and I'm now hosting All in a Day. So it's that is the weird little road trip through broadcasting.
How long have you been at All in a Day now?
What a great question. You would think I would.
I'm curious because I know I've heard you on there for what seems like ages now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and weirdly enough, like I was filling in as the host like in 2001, right? Like that was still the zone of like being able to fill in for people here and there. For a long time, I mean, I was a casual. At one point I held the record. I can't remember whether Julie Ireton or I have the record now, but for the longest time as a casual employee, like where people thought, oh, you have a job there without having a job. And they sat me down at one point and said, you might never have a job here, but you will always have work. And at the time, I had to figure out, again, in my 20s, that seemed okay. Like I didn't have a family. I was like, okay, work like forever, never have a job. Okay, that seems like the norm now. I think now, maybe you would be better to tell me this or not, but I don't know whether people would be as ready to accept that now. I think now people are much more ready to say, no, you have to actually give me the stability and make me like allow me to have a job that would respect completely with benefits, etc.
Yeah.
I don't know. My impression is that that's much more top of mind than perhaps I was then. So it worked out for where I was at that time. But that's kind of so I mean, when people say they've sort of heard me on the show forever, it could have been when I was filling in
intermittently,
it could be like I'm trying to think of actually when
was the hard date that you became the official?
When I actually began, but I'm sure we're coming up on 9 years.
Oh, okay.
Now,
yeah, that sounds about right.
Maybe that zone.
Okay, well, I know you got to get out of here, and hopefully we don't have to reshoot this whole thing based on all the technical crap that happened. But I want to ask you switch to geekiness because this show is pretty geeky.
Yes, I saw all the comics behind you. I was trying to spot everything behind you.
Oh yeah, it's a pop culture explosion down here. So I wanted to ask you just sort of quickly if you had a favorite fandom, and then that sort of ties into the last question that we've been asking every guest this season, which is if you could have a superpower endowed upon you, what would it be and why?
Oh,
nothing. Not allowing flying. We've never really allowed flying.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, a fandom that I love the most. Well,
I know it's a hard question.
Yeah, no. Well, one of the coolest experiences. I will think about it from my own perspective in a sec. But one of the coolest experiences. I went to San Diego Comic-Con a while back because a friend of mine who's a filmmaker, his film was being shown there, and he was like, "Do you want to come?" Do I want to come? What? Are you kidding me? And it was an amazing. Like for a geek, it was like.
Oh, I've always wanted to go.
Like it's insane. The people that you were up close with and like the introductions you were seeing for the first time, all that stuff was amazing. But one of the most interesting moments was going to the Orphan Black day because I mean I love the show Orphan Black, but I thought of it as this Canadian
underground
show
hit.
that I was, and then you walk into this room and it was like not an arena, but like a full conference room full of like people dressing up like the characters. And like I was sitting beside this American woman where they at one point they showed the scene where they were like making it rain money, and she was like, oh yeah, because that's real money, that's Canadian money, she was saying to me, and I'm like, I know, I'm from Canada. But it was this incredible seeing this row of Canadian actors up there. I mean, Tatiana Maslany, like, what an insane
Didn't she
talent.
get cast as She-Hulk?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah,
She
that's
did.
so cool.
Well, that's going to be great. I love She-Hulk too. Like, I mean,
Oh, what a cool character. Yeah, she breaks the fourth wall, much like Deadpool. Seems to know that she's a comic book character.
The sensational She-Hulk, when I was about 12 or 13, probably, was when that came out, and that was completely like nothing for me anyway at that point, where that whole playing with
maybe
reality,
Howard the Duck might have done some of that, but that's about it back then. Yeah.
And I mean, I tend to be more of a DC person than I'm. I sense
really?
and from your wall, you are more a Marvel.
I'm more Marvel, but my dad and my brother are heavy DC, so I have those influences still.
Marvel makes much better movies. I'm not gonna fault you on that. That's will be so interesting to see what they do. And I found it so interesting also what people have been saying online, like, allow She-Hulk to be as ugly as the Hulk when she changes. And I was suddenly like, oh my God, that's so interesting. Like, I hadn't even really thought that through.
Yeah, because you imagine they're just gonna, make her look sexy and
super hot, like Amazonian kind of. But I never thought about the fact that, oh right, we accept the monster part of the Hulk, but when she's She-Hulk, for some reason, she just becomes super gorgeous and green. But I never really thought of that. But so I'll be interested in seeing how they play with that.
So for your superpower, because I think we got 4 minutes and it may just cut us off at 12:30.
Okay.
I'm not positive,
for sure. My superpower, I've been always fascinated with the telekinetics in comics and TV, both in like the horror sense, but also in actual superpower. And I think often when I would do like role-playing games, like superhero stuff, it would often be, that was the power of choice. I think that idea that you're able to control things at a
moving objects with your mind and stuff,
being able to help, like that idea that you can, because I think we have a fear of like not being able to get to someone in time. Yeah. And that idea that you wouldn't have to be reaching out or using and also that idea that your mind could potentially be stronger than physically you would be. Not that I'm not massive physically, but that you would be able to, no matter how strong you were physically, to be able to stop something or control something. I think. Well,
with that power too, you could, depending on how you look at it, you could probably make yourself fly by using it on yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, well, this is the whole Sue Storm thing of like. Yeah. So, she can just create force fields, except the force field could be anything. It
can be a little platform she stands on. Yeah.
Exactly. The catapult or whatever you need. Like it's.
And people also forget that I believe she can make things invisible that she touches as well to some degree.
Yeah. I think it was always kind of a little unclear as to what.
Depends on the writer. Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
That's comics for you though. Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up. I don't want to get cut off abruptly. So I'll thank you again so much for coming, and we'll have to have you on again. Yeah. Regardless of if it's because we have to or because, just to have you on again. So thanks again, man. Thanks so much.
For sure. If you need to, and if you need to even do more of this or like whatever, you let me know.
Rework it somehow. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And I'm going to have to make sure that damn cord is plugged in all the way now. What a nightmare this turned out to be, but still a great time.
Yeah. No, this was great. Thanks. And yeah, if you need anything, but congrats on the show and everything it's doing.
Awesome. Have a great rest of your day, man.
Bye, Oliver.
Bye.